Welcome to Mamaw Knows. Today we are going to continue our masterclass series on fractions, and we will be talking about adding and subtracting fractions that have different bottom numbers known as the denominator. If you missed the previous video where we discussed and reviewed how to add or subtract fractions with the same denominator, then please check out our link, okay, that will take you to that video as well. Alright, we're going to look at some examples, and we're going to start with adding, but here again we're looking at adding fractions that have a different denominator or lower number. Alright, the first one we're going to look at is we're going to look at 3/7 plus 2 over 21. Alright, now in this particular example, what we want to look at is the fact that the denominators are not the same. Until we can make them the same, we cannot add them. So the first thing we have to do is learn how to find a common denominator. Now there are several things that you can do for this, but the very first thing I would advise doing is look at the two numbers, pick the larger of the two denominators, which in this case is 21. Will the smaller number go into 21 evenly? In other words, if you divide 7 into 21, does it go evenly? In this case, 7 will divide into 21 3 times. 3 times 7 is 21. That means that we can use 21 as a common denominator, but we're going to have to change 3/7 to an equal number of 21st. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to write these two fractions underneath one another. 3/7 plus 2 over 21. And then over here beside the 3/7, we're going to convert it to 21s. So I'm going to write 21 on the bottom. And we said before that 7 will go into 21 3 times. So 7 times 3 is 21. So out here beside the 3/7, we're going to say times 3 and times 3. Because when you convert a fraction to a different form, you have got to change both the top and the bottom by the same amount. In this case, by 3 over 3, because 3 over 3 is 1. So that way you're not changing the value of the fraction, but just the form it's written in. So we're going to take 3/7 and we're going to multiply it by 3 over 3. 3 times 3 is 9. 3 times 7 is 21. So now we have 9 over 21 plus 2 over 21. Now we can go back to the rule that we learned in the first video, where if you have the same denominator, you keep the denominator and you just add the upper numbers of the numerators. So now we have 9 plus 2, which is 11, over 21. Alright, now that's the first example. This next example is going to be a little bit more complex. We're going to look at 1/6 plus 2/9. Now if we take that first rule that I told you about in the other example and we look at 6 and 9, 6 won't go into 9. So we can't use that to figure out a common denominator. Another method that you can use is you can take the larger number, the 9, and you can multiply it by 2, that's 18, then test the lower number. Will 6 go into 18 evenly? Yes, 6 will go into 18 3 times. So if it will go 3 times, then that means that if we multiply the 2/9 by 2 and the 1/6 by 3, then we will have them both in 18. So let's write that out. 1/6 on top, 2/9 on the bottom. The 1/6, remember, we have to multiply by 3 over 3. So times 3 over 3, we have 1 times 3 is 3. We have 6 times 3 is 18. So now we have 3/18. Now let's look at the 2/9. The 2/9, remember, we just multiplied by 2. So we have to multiply it by 2 over 2. 2 times 2 is 4. 9 times 2 is 18. So now we have 4/18. Now we have both fractions with the same denominator. The new denominator is 18. So we just add the top. We have 3 plus 4 equals 7. So our final answer would be 7 over 18. I told you they get a little more complicated, but that's okay. Our third example is going to be 1/6 plus 2/7. Now in this one, the easiest way to find your common denominator is simply to multiply the two existing denominators. 7 times 6. 7 times 6 is 42. All right, so our new denominators are going to be 42. So let's again start out with our problem 1/6 over 2/7. We have 1/6. In order to get 42, remember we multiplied 6 times 7. So we're going to have to say 1/6 times 7 over 7. 1 times 7 is 7. 6 times 7 is 42. All right, now let's move to the 2/7. Remember, to multiply 7, we have to multiply it by 6 to get 42. So we have 2/7 times 6 over 6. 2 times 6 is 12. 7 times 6 is 42. So now we have 7 over 42 plus 12 over 42, which would give us 19 over 42. Those are the three most common situations you run into when trying to find a common denominator, and we will make additional practice available for you. Let's look at some subtraction examples now, because in addition and subtraction of fractions, the rules are the same. So when you have two fractions that do not have the same denominator and you're subtracting them, then again you have to find a common denominator first. So in our first example for subtraction, we're going to say 7/12 minus 1/6, and we're going to write them again below one another. 7/12 minus 1/6. All right, and this one, remember, one of the ways we can find a common denominator is to see if the smaller one will divide evenly into the larger one. Will 6 divide into 12 evenly? Well, yes, 6 times 2 is 12. So that means we can use the larger number, the larger denominator, as our common denominator. So we start with the 7/12 at the top. The 7/12 we're not going to change, so it's just going to equal 7/12. The 1/6 we have to multiply by 2 over 2, because remember 2 times 6 is 12. So then we would equal 2/12. So we have 7/12 minus 2/12. Our denominator is now the same, so we keep it. 7 minus 2 is 5. So our answer would be 5/12. Let's look at another example. This one's a little more difficult again. We have 3/5 minus 3/7. Now in this instance, 5 and 7, neither one of them are multiples of the other. So we're going to have to multiply them. 5 times 7 is 35. So we're going to use 35 as our common denominator for this subtraction problem. All right, so we have 3/5. What do you have to multiply 5 by to get 35? We said you had to multiply it by 7. So 3/5 times 7 over 7. 3 times 7 is 21. 5 times 7 is 35. So we have 21/35 minus 3/7 we have to change. Again, we want to go to 35. So 7 times 5 gives us 35. So 7 times 5 would be 35 on the bottom. 3 times 5 on the top would be 15. So we have 15/35. So now we have the same denominator. The top is 21 minus 15. That's going to give us 6. So our answer would be 6 over 35. Okay, one more example. And this one, these numbers are a little bit bigger. You should never let that scare you, because it all works the same way. And honestly, if you don't know your multiplication tables, that's something you might want to work on the side. But you know, there's always a calculator too, so you can check yourself with those if you need to. All right, so for our third example, let's look at 7/9 minus 5/8. Again, you're going to have to multiply these two denominators to get a common denominator, because neither one of them is a multiple of the other. So we have 9 times 8, which is 72, is going to be our new denominator. So we have 7/9, and we're converting to 70-seconds. So 7 times 8 would be 56, and 9 times 8 would be our 72. All right, so we have 56 over 72. In our second fraction, we have 5/8, so we have to multiply by the 9. So 5 times 9 would be 45. Again, 8 times 9 is 72. So our final problem is 56 70-seconds minus 45 70-seconds, which would equal 11 over 72, or 11 70-seconds. All right, as you can see, each one of these is the same process. The most complicated thing about it is simply remembering that you want to find a common denominator in each instance. And once that's done, the rest of it is simple. We're going to add a couple of practice problems before you leave. If you will try working those out, we will include the answers for them in the video description. if you would like to check yourself, and then please add comments to let us know how well you did and if you enjoyed the video. In the meantime, I want to say thank you for viewing us. We would love to see you again in the next video where we will be talking about multiplication of fractions.